Welcome to Confessions of a Parent Coach. I'm Coach, mother of four, and potty talker, Ann-Kaplan. This is the podcast where I confess something from my own parenting and coaching life, teach a lesson around it, and answer your questions. Even we parenting experts are far from perfect, and the real magic happens when we get down with all that imperfection. We get into the gritty side of parenting here, so earbud up and dive in.
Hello, everybody, and welcome into another episode of the podcast. I'm excited to be here with you again this week, and I really hope that today's episode title, The Quickest Way to Crappy Parenting, got your interest piqued, and maybe we even have a few new listeners today because I feel like that's a really, really catchy, hooky title. So I hope I sucked you in to checking out something new and figuring out what is the crappiest way to or sorry, not the crappiest way. What is the quickest way to crappy parenting? And I will tell you, like, if you can eliminate this one thing that I'm going to talk to you about today, it actually could be the only thing you need to do to completely change your parenting. You might not even need to listen to any other podcast episodes. You might not need to work with me. You might not need anything else, any other parenting advice in your entire life if you could just do this one thing. But I also will tell you that it is really hard because I've been teaching this stuff for years and years and years. I preach it over and over and over again. And I myself been parenting for 19, almost 20 years, y'all. My eldest kiddo is going to turn 20 in a couple months. Is that crazy? And I still break this rule for myself or don't follow this advice or whatever. So I think this is a perfect timing. And this is a great segue into my confession for you guys. Um, it's towards the end of the summer right now when I'm recording this episode. It's like late August, actually mid-August, and back to school starting or whatever. And I don't know about you guys, but I definitely experience by the end of summer break, like what I call summer slippage. Like all of my rules for myself, my rules for the kids, our structure, our schedule, our routine, everything has slid into just kind of like chaotic summer lethargy. And that means that I am also at home with my kids, right? So this is one of the reasons why we have the backslide, right? Is because we're home with our kids. We don't have this routine and structure that helps them have the things that they're doing and gives us these pockets of time to do what we need to do. We're kind of just doing all of the things all of the time. And as somebody who works from home, I already am kind of like doing multiple things at a time, even when my kids are in school, because I'm like, I'm at home. So I can do a session with a client and then go change the load of laundry or, write a blog post and then take out some chicken from the freezer to defrost. Like there's a lot of all the things blending together that happens anyways if we're not careful when we're working from home, especially when we're working for ourselves from home. And then pile on a school break on top of that, a school break that lasts 3 months on top of that. And it is just all kinds of pandemonium. And that is my confession for you today, is that here I am mid-August and I am multitasking all the time. Like I am recording this podcast episode right now. I just finished making dinner. I've got my kiddos downstairs. I'm in the middle of baking a batch of brownies. This is the multitasking life of a mom who, like I said, works from home for herself and her kids are out of school. And that is the number one way, the fastest way to crappy parenting is multitasking. And my clients or followers who have been with me since I very first launched my business might remember, like I have said from the very beginning, multitasking is the devil. It is so bad for us. Now, I'm really lucky right now, even though I'm technically breaking my own rule by multitasking right now. I also have a husband who's home and keeping a lid on things for me and stuff like that, and he's wonderful. But why do I say it so powerfully and so like kind of mic droppy? Multitasking is the devil. Think about, like, first of all, we know that actually multitasking is a myth. You actually can't, like your brain is incapable of doing two things at once. So when you think you're multitasking, what you're actually doing is switching back and forth between two or even more things really, really quickly. You're not actually multitasking. And so let's just think about, how that affects the outcome of all of those things that you're doing. Well, first of all, it makes them take a lot longer because something that you just sit down and you start from a beginning to end, no interruptions, you're going to do it really smoothly. You're not going to lose your train of thought. You're not going to have to remind yourself what you were doing or, oh, where was I? Oh, yeah, pick up where I left off. No, you're going to get it done in the shortest amount of time possible if you only do that and nothing else. Also, if you only do that and nothing else, your attention is really centered and focused, which means you're going to do a really good job. You're going to do the best job that you can because, once again, no interruptions, nothing to distract you. You are really seeing it through from beginning to end, nothing slips through the cracks, etc. So you're going to do the best job that you can. And the third thing that happens when you are only doing one thing at a time is because your focus is on this one thing and not multiple things, you're not frustrated. You're not frantic. You don't have this sense of urgency, and you're not having this feeling in the back of your mind like, oh my gosh, there's something else I'm supposed to be paying attention to. No, you're just doing this thing. Conversely, and here's why multitasking is the devil, when we multitask, we are taking longer to get something done, doing it more poorly, and bringing that frantic, distracted, something in the back of your mind energy to the project. And now let's talk about parenting, because we're not just talking about like taking care of some laundry while you bake some brownies or writing a few emails while you also, straighten up and tidy your house. We're talking about raising a human being here. Now, how much of your time when you are parenting are you monotasking, meaning you're doing nothing else but hanging out with your kid? I mean, I don't, and I'll be honest for myself too. Like, I think there are definitely days where I could actually say zero of my time am I with my kid and doing nothing else. I might be sitting with my kid, but also I'm checking my emails. I might be talking to my kid, but I'm also, keeping an eye on this thing that I've got going on the stove. I might be trying to write an email while my kid is talking to me. These are the things that contribute to us being super crappy parents, you guys, myself included, 100% myself included. Because and the number one reason, at least for me, and I can tell you for a lot of my clients, the number one reason, yes, we're taking longer to do stuff. Yes, we're not doing it as well. But the worst culprit in all of that mix that makes multitasking the devil, that makes multitasking the quickest way to crappy parenting, is that frantic, urgent energy that we have. How does it feel to be in a conversation with somebody who you can tell their mind is on something else, that they are preoccupied? They're really not fully listening to what you have to say. And oftentimes, not only can you tell that they are preoccupied, they're irritated. They're irritated with you because you're distracting them from the thing that you really want to be paying attention to. That's an energy that we are coming to parenting with a ton of the time. How awful. That just stinks. It's not fun to be on the receiving end of that energy. And I can tell you that, sure, the phone is a big culprit for sure. But I had a session last week with a client who I'm doing actually business coaching with, not parent coaching, but she's got a little one at home. And she was telling me that she was kind of getting to this point where she was like, I just don't know if maybe I should just not even do this business. And I was asking her why. And we looked at like, well, how many hours a week are you actually spending on your job? Well, it's not that much. And I only really work when my kiddo's taking a nap. Okay, great. That's awesome. You're not multitasking at all. But what is it like when she's like, but it just feels like it's distracting for my child. And I was like, well, how could your business be distracting from your child if you only do it when your kid is asleep? And she sat for a minute and then she realized like it's because when I'm with him, even when I'm not actually working, I'm thinking about my work and I'm thinking about how I should be marketing and how I didn't get the number of clients I was supposed to get this week, or et cetera, et cetera. So even though I'm not actually working, I'm never 100% present with my kid because it's just running in the background of my mind. this is the kind of multitasking that is so pernicious because, like this mom said, she's not actually doing anything other than parenting. She's not doing work when her kid is around. But because she psychologically can't walk away and do that, like, sort of shift into paying attention to what she's paying attention to right here and now and letting everything else fall away, the energy of multitasking is coming through. So the first step in like breaking all this cycle is to stop multitasking. And I know what probably half of you at least are thinking as you're hearing me say this is, I have to multitask. If I don't do everything all at once, nothing will get done. All I want you to do is just give yourself a chance to prove it to yourself that you can get, across the finish line without multitasking. Because if what I just said is true, that when we don't multitask, we actually get things done more quickly, you actually could get more done by not multitasking than by multitasking. That might sound crazy, but prove it to yourself. Don't believe me. Do it for like a week or even just a few days. One of the things that my clients get when they start working with me is a tutorial on like organizing your time and time management, including a super basic, like very low tech, just grid of the hours in a day and writing down what you're going to be doing for all of those hours. Now, obviously, do you need to stick to that rigidly? No, life happens. But I think one of the most important reasons and why, even after multiple editions of this workbook, I have not taken that totally low tech grid out of the workbook is because, to me, the point of that grid is not to actually follow it to the T, or even, you know, loosely. Maybe for some families it's not necessary. The utility of that grid is to actually sit down and put pen to paper and prove to yourself that there are enough hours in the day and that you will get across the finish line even when you are only doing one thing at a time. And this is possible for you. So especially, I know most of my listeners are moms, not all, but one of the things people talk about all the time is how women are better at multitasking than men. And I actually think that is like super insidious for us to hear as moms, because it is true that we're very good at like holding multiple things sort of in our minds at the same time. And we are really good in general, comparatively anyways, let's say relatively, we are good at time management. But hearing, oh, women are better than men at multitasking, it almost like says that like multitasking is this really great thing to aspire to. And it almost implies that in order for us to function as women in the world, we have to multitask. And I really think like the number one contributor to cranky parenting, to distracted parenting, to irritated parenting, to us losing our tempers, to us falling into like lazy parenting, meaning like parenting from the couch, repeating ourselves a bunch of times, waiting until we're super frustrated to intervene with our children or give them a consequence, giving an answer without thinking about it when our kids are talking to us. It's always because we're multitasking. And if we weren't multitasking, the number of times that we would do these things that create really bad behavior in our kids, really destroy and degrade relationships, they just wouldn't be very common in our way of being. And so I really want you to give yourself permission to even just entertain the notion that you don't have to multitask. It takes training to let it go, which is why it's so easy to slip back into it, even for me. Um, training, because we're so used to having multiple things. Like, I mean, I'll be honest, like when I'm on my phone, half the time I'm watching a show and playing a game of solitaire at the same time. Like, why my show that I'm so interested to watch is so boring that I need a second thing going, right? Like our brains are getting more and more wired that only one thing at a time is like, at best boring and at worst like a, horrible, egregious thing that we're doing that makes us inefficient and lazy and a wasting time and all of that stuff. So it's a retrain your brain kind of thing. But just, maybe entertain the possibility that multitasking is optional, that just fixing this one thing, becoming better at monotasking, could be the only thing that your parenting needs to become so plugged in, so effective. You might be able to completely transform your child's behavior simply by only monotasking. So think about that today. If you think that that's worth pursuing, prove to yourself, like put pen to paper and prove to yourself that it's actually possible. And then do it just for a few days and just see what it's like. You might be flabbergasted, honestly, at how different your parenting is just from this one little thing. So I hope that's helpful for you. I can't wait to talk to you again next week. If all of these things that you've been listening to in my podcast have been helpful, if they're helping keeping you accountable, if they're helping keeping you on track, if they're giving you some new ideas and some new perspectives, and you're getting more and more excited about this incredible journey that you could be on with your child and parenting, please reach out to me and set up a free discovery call. I cannot wait to hear from you and understand exactly what's going on in your family, exactly what you want it to look like, and help you create a roadmap to getting there with or without me. It's free. It's amazing coaching. And most of my clients say that even just from their first initial free consultation with me, things started to change for them and their families. I cannot wait to hear from you, and I will talk to you again next week. Bye, everybody.
The episode is over, but there's more waiting for you. You can grab my free workbook, Getting Kids to Listen the First Time, that walks you through the fundamental principles I teach all of my clients and applies them to this very universal parenting challenge. So if you're sick of repeating yourself all day long or just want to learn more about my style, you'll definitely want to go to bit.ly/kidswholisten. And if you're ready to work with me, let's meet. Set up a free call at bit.ly/KaplanCall, and let's create an action plan that gets you exactly where you want to go. And of course, links to all this goodness are in the show notes. Thanks for joining, and I'll see you next time.